tuning in near and far. This is Brother Marcus Sankofa Nix for yet again another empowering, inspiring conversation, discussion, dialogue with our History Heals Talk series with the slogan and theme and motto, learn from the past, heal for the future. So it's been a little while. It's been some time, but Brother Sankofa is still here. And so the mission has still stayed the same in terms of using African and African-American culture and history as a vehicle to uplift and empower the community through a trauma-informed approach with the focus on healing, wellness, and many other things. So I'm excited and delighted for this discussion, this conversation. And for those who might be tuning in for the first time, this platform here was established for a number of reasons. And some of the reasons, and I'll just go down the line briefly, quick, fast, is to provide therapeutic conversation that blends history, mental health issues, along with present day topics and issues from a psychosocial, historical, cultural, spiritual, holistic approach, but also to discuss practical wellness strategies that could be implemented day to day, and also build community and establish community here. So as one who's a historian, an educator, one who does work in the community, I wanted to provide a platform in a way that this healing can continue to take place. However, I'm not alone by any means. And so I'm delighted today to have a brother who is with us. And I don't even want to call him a guest. This brother is a longtime friend, a family member, not biological, but my fellow comrade, brother in the struggle, amongst many, many things. I've known the brother since I graduated from college. And so he's been definitely an inspiration to me. In fact, let me just say this. There would be no History Heals Consulting if it wasn't for this brother here, in terms of all that I have learned and picked up from over the course of time, over the years. So we have Dr. Brother Dennis Ausar Winkler, aka Dr. Dahl, with us today. And so we're going to get right into the conversation. But before we do, I just want to, for those tuning in, listening, who may not be as familiar with the brother as I am or some others are, I'll give a brief read to his bio, and then we'll get into the conversation that awaits for today. So Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler is an entrepreneur, social scientist, assistant professor of graduate counseling. He's a psychotherapist, a business consultant, and a scholar activist who serves his community and has done so all his adult life. All right. And I would even argue that he's even been serving his community before his adult life. But furthermore, he has lectured at countless seminars, workshops, and private sessions. He has served many individuals, groups, couples, families, and organizations in the progressive development of the traditionally overlooked and disenfranchised, namely the African American Black community. And Dr. Winkler's mission is to equip individuals and families with the necessary tools to build stronger family units and communities. This brother here is a founder of the TNAT Holistic Wellness Center. I also want to give a shout out to his beloved queen, Camille Winkler, because that is also the home of Diaspora and Soul, a wonderful restaurant. The brother's from Old York and Cater. He's proud of his B-More roots. And so I'm excited for this discussion. As I said before, as we were getting started up, this brother here, this might be his first time here, but this is not going to be his last time. So, Dr. Dennis, Brother Winkler, how you doing, my brother? Welcome aboard.
Peace, 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 peace and power, Brother Sankofa. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks for the opening and also adding the OYC roots in there.
That's right. That's right. And I know there's a number of different ways in which we, in which people know you and are familiar with you, which speaks to your range of how you've engaged with all elements of our community, because many times our community might be seen as monolithic, but there is a lot of diversity even within our community amongst our people. And so you speak to that and embody that very much so. With this being February, Black History Month, I definitely want to recognize an ancestor, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. All right, and for those who are not familiar with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he's considered the father of Black History Month. And so 1925 or 1926 was when Negro History Week was first inaugurated, an organization that he established based in Chicago, Illinois, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which would eventually become the Association for the African American Study of Life and History, first inaugurated Negro History Week in February. And then 1976, it then becomes a full-fledged month. And so Carter G. Woodson, who came from a past of enslavement, rose himself up and became a scholar, a historian, intellectual, and he's one of many ancestral giants whose shoulders we stand on today. And so for today's theme, and for today's topic of the conversation, we're going to be speaking on community care through the lens of history, healing, and wellness. Community care through the lens of history, healing, and wellness. And one of the things that I want to highlight and raise up is that there's an upcoming event taking place at the TNAT Holistic Wellness Center, Saturday, February 17th from 6 to 9, Black History and Cultural Healing, Community Talk and Celebration. And so Brother Dennis and I have worked together to put on community forums and education opportunities for the community before. And so they're very empowering and they're very important. And so we'll get into that in a few moments. But Dr. Dennis, share with us a little bit about your story, first and foremost, in terms of this work that you do, those who paved the way for you, perhaps some elders in your life, or perhaps significant individuals, or even ancestors who have gone before you, to set the foundation for our conversation, who has been integral and significant in your journey, that's even been the building block for you to even be where you are doing this valuable work?
Great question. I would be remiss if I didn't go with the root. Have to say, Karen Angela Winkler, my mother, who birthed me, showed me how to love people, and in real time. My father, the same way. So my father introduced me to more of a cultural understanding, African-centered understanding, Black-centered understanding, whereas my mother showed me how to love family and community. From there, I'll say all the teachers, I'll just name a few that my father was following, such as Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Stokely Carmichael, so many other people, up to more recent, I would say, Dr. Henry Gregory, I would say Dr. Ray Hagins, Dr. Marion Stanton, the provost of Sojourner Douglas College. It's so many to mention that I don't want to forget, but definitely these are some of the people that's coming off the top of my head right now.
Sure. And thank you for that. Oftentimes, we can have our successes, or we can do the things we do, but I think it's definitely important to go back and acknowledge perhaps those who paved the way and created the opportunity and the space for us to do what it is that we do. So furthermore, you have done a lot of research and a lot of work with various communities. And to be honest, I won't even just solely focus on the Black community, even though Black liberation and Black empowerment has been your core focus, if you will. And so in many different environments, in many different spaces, on many different turfs, so to speak, you've engaged in research in terms of clinical research. You did a whole deep dissertation on racial trauma and healing. You have established businesses. You've worked with couples, individuals, groups. The list goes on and on and on. But what I'm getting at, Brother Dennis, Dr. Winkler, is what have been some of the significant findings that you have discovered in your field? Have there been some consistent through lines or consistent patterns and consistent themes that you perhaps have discovered that warrant further inquiry or that have kind of made you that have been insightful for you along your path? What is it that you have uncovered in your research, empirically, clinically, and any other facet?
Communally, let me go there.
Okay.
Not necessarily even just research based, but as you say, um, uh, so communally, right? But also clinically, but also via research. One of the things that I realized, and is that we struggle. I'm just going to say people in America, but specifically, I want to speak to us who identify as Black or African American or Africans or what have you, that we struggle in relationships. And that is major. And even before I could, uh, let's say, articulate it the way that I can articulate it today, my mission has always been to reintroduce us to being able to be relational, to treat one another as family, extended family members, communal family members. And yes, so that but there's been a breakdown, because in that breakdown, through the trauma that you spoke about, my dissertation is on race-based trauma. And it being on race-based trauma, what I realized in studying trauma to a significant level is that at the core or the crux of that is our lack of ability to trust. And that is one of the
Mm,
core features of any type of trauma. So we don't trust one another. And this is not new. This is new. We've heard over the years, but I'm saying that if we don't heal, we're not going to be able to trust. And we don't have good reason to trust unless we understand that that is a part of the healing process, is to begin to trust so that we can have relationships. In relationships, we can heal.
trust, trust, trust. Yes. I know, Brother Dennis, Dr. Winkler, you and I have had a number of conversations about that. And I know in our circles, whether it's our Gia fellowships or book discussions and rites of passages or so on and so forth, these have been things that have resurfaced and that have come up. Um, and one of the things that I try to also look at, even within the scope of my work, is perhaps the intergenerational trauma. What are these things that are being passed down from generation to generation? What are these things that are being carried over from generation to generation? Um, so, how have you, from your work, seen this play out in terms of the lack of trust that you mentioned? You mentioned relationships. Now that lack of trust can impact relationships, but how did this stuff show up? Like, how does this stuff show up? Because I would say perhaps it might look different for different people. So can you even expound and even elaborate on that, so to speak? Because I do agree that that is huge, that's significant. Build upon that, my brother, if you can. Build upon that.
It looks like the communities that you see, whether you in East Baltimore, West Baltimore, or Howard County, when you think about Black people. And again, I'm speaking specific to Black people because this is my primary focus. I'm not saying other people have it any better or they're doing it any better, but what I'm saying is it looks like communities where family members don't speak to each other. It looks like communities uh, where let me just go back. Let me talk about it since you spoke about organizations. We build
Sure,
all
sure.
types of we talk about all kinds of organizations. We want to build organizations, and then we try to figure out why these organizations cannot take off as much as we think they should take off, and how they fold and those type of things, and how people back up and they don't want to deal with each other. If there's one argument and I'm done. I mean, this is in any relationship. Let me say that work relationships, familiar relationships, organizational relationships, people isolate themselves. It looks like that. It looks like I'm not dealing with them anymore. It looks like what you see on social media when you hear everybody say, I'm cutting everybody off. I'm not dealing with anybody. This is 2024. This is the year of cutting. It's not about creating boundaries. It's not, it's even the other way. It looks like I'm overly indulged in these relationships. I'm overly enmeshed in these relationships, and I don't have boundaries. Because I want people to like me. I mean, it looks like so much, Brother Sankofa. I'm struggling to really kind of narrow it down, because I can talk about it for years.
Sure. And it is, and I appreciate you for coming at it the way you are, because it's a lot. Which is why we're gonna have you back on for sure. So get ready, get prepared. Which is what I wanted to do initially anyway, is have you continue, because this conversation is so important. Some of the work, that's right, Brother Job, part 2 and 3 and 4, some of the work that I spend time with, W.E.B. Du Bois, Souls of Black Folk. He mentions double consciousness and these warring ideals, this conflict going on inside. I think about Frederick Douglass, My Bondage, My Freedom. He wrote to that. I think about even Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., when he talks about this inner tension. Now, why am I bringing these individuals up? Because as you speak about trauma, and this injury that has happened to our people, I'm thinking about this inner tension, this inner conflict, this inner struggle. And so one of the things that I also know is that if we don't find ways to work through and metabolize this trauma that we have that we are experiencing, then we can then hurt somebody else. Then we can then pass it on to somebody else, and further perpetuate that damage. I know that TNAT Holistic Wellness Center does a whole lot to work to uncover and to get in the root of that, and to try to remedy that and support that and heal that. What are for those who are listening, what are the ways in which, well, let me just say this. Okay, let me ask you this question here. There's a number of things I want to ask you. I know there's an event coming up February 17th on Saturday. And I know the focus of that is Black History and Cultural Healing University Talk. I don't know what you're going to talk about. I would love to know. And, I know you ain't got to give it all away. And you maybe even working on what you're going to say for that. But you mentioned communally. When it comes to, once again, your research and your findings, what impact does a collective standpoint or a communal group coming together to support each other, and even culture, what role does that play in perhaps aiding individuals in the process to work through some of that trauma? What because I'm bringing that up because I know you have mentioned that earlier, communally, but what would you say to that? What role does that play? And I see here African Black centered thought, revolutionary framework for Black healers, healing and liberation. So what's this communal thing? Why is that so important? Why does that matter when it comes to this healing piece and trauma piece?
Okay, so great question. I wrote a post the other day on Instagram, and I'll just kind of read it. I said individualism is a symptom of Western oppression and a key ingredient of maintaining the status quo. And that goes back to your earlier question. When we look at our communities, there's lots of blight. There's lots of slight. There's lots of plight. There's lots of all these words that I don't care what socioeconomic level you're at, we don't know how to connect. And that connection is part of the issue, but it's part of it's a symptom, but that connection is necessary for the healing. If I could break it down, right? So
Please do. Please do.
when people been through trauma, let's say on an individual level, because I'm speaking to it on a group level now, when people have been through trauma, what takes place is they know their social system or their ability to socialize or socially relate, socially connect with other people become thwarted. It becomes thrown off. It becomes uh and hence what happens is people become ill mentally. People become isolated. They become depressed. They become anxious. They become all these type of things. And what happens is when you've been through certain levels of trauma, the fact that you want to approach the very trauma or the very stimuli that has you afraid keeps you in that cycle of living an isolated, lonely, unhealthy life. And it also keeps our communities in the same condition they are. I don't care if you live downtown, uptown, around the corner, or in the suburbs, our communities are suffering from a lack of community. Community is rich in culture. Community is rich in history. You can't do none of these things by yourself. And you need all these things to be mentally healthy. You need all these things to tell you how you must move forward. It tells you how to when if you feel isolated, if you feel as an individual in this great big world, you feel afraid. You don't take you lack ambition. You don't take risks. You do all types of things. You feel like you're in a place of scarcity. That is a very oppressed state. When you work together, and I know you have my back, you know I have your back, you know that we're going to work together to accomplish goals together, then we can feel more relaxed. Our parasympathetic nervous system can relax. Well, I'm saying it can kick in. Let's say that our sympathetic nervous, I'm gonna say our sympathetic nervous system can kick in, and we can think better. We can sleep better. We can relate better. Because if you're not sleeping, thinking, you can't think. You're highly aroused. You're afraid of people. Your conflict is going on. Is your relationship? I'm talking about even your romantic relationship is suffering. Your romantic relationship is suffering because you can't you don't trust him or her. Your relationship with your mother is suffering because you don't trust them. And I'm not saying that some things haven't happened on an individual level, but things have happened on an individual level and a familial level, which is a result of this oppression that we find ourselves under. And now, only enemy we can see, quote unquote, is the mother or the father or the sister or the brother or whoever that we feel inflicted on us, but we don't see how these oppressive conditions create situations and an environment to create certain results. So we have to deal with it on a double prong level. We have to deal with it on an individual. We have to, well, more than double prong, but individual, familial, communal, societal level. If not, we just playing games.
Now
I'm
I
not
hear
sure
you.
that's
Now I hear you, Dr. Winkler. I hear you,
mm-hmm.
Brother Dennis. I know you. You know you
Yeah.
didn't. Been to school and got your schooling, and you had your research and all that. But I'm an introvert. I
Uh-huh.
ain't look. I'm an introvert, Dr. Winkler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really do people like that. I don't have time to try to figure them out. I don't have time to try to process their energy and know what their intentions are. In fact, it's just self care, man. The first law of preservation is self care. So I'm just gonna do me. I'm just trying to stay out the way. I'm just trying to stay out the way, right? These are some of the things that that we say. In fact, I've been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have, Dr. Dennis, more risk in me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have the risk to take to try to be your brother or to try to, because I've been hurt so many times. Why should
Mm-hmm.
I extend myself again? It's happened so many times. I would be a fool to go ahead and risk it again. So speak to that, brother Dennis. And you probably heard some things in your own right. But what would you say to those who might come at it like that? It might say those type of things to what you're saying, brother.
I would say that's fine if you're fine where you are.
Okay. Talk to me, Dr. Dennis. What you mean by that?
Like, if you're okay with the conditions that's going on outside and the conditions that's going on inside of you, then it's okay. You do that. But if you want some change on the outside and you want some change on the inside, then we have to move past that. But we will walk with you. I'll walk with you at your pace so that you can get there.
Okay, got you. Now, what I also have heard and seen in some of my own dealings working
Thank
with
you thank you for the challenge. I love it. Turn it up. I love it.
So, what about those on the receiving end? Now, oftentimes, and this is what I have noticed, we oftentimes say, well, we need to open up. We need to be vulnerable. We need to put ourselves out there. But then there's not oftentimes a whole lot of conversation or a whole lot of things said to those who are on the other end to perhaps make that environment safe or for them to be willing to open up. Now, of course, sometimes people are going to take stuff and interpret stuff and perceive stuff how they do with their distorted lens. And perhaps that just is what it is. But I think there is also something to be said. I'm sure your training also speaks to this, your experience with also holding space. And I've discovered it might be hard for people to be able to hold space to connect, to be able to accept others when they're dealing with so much, when they're overwhelmed, they can't even see clear. Has there been anything that, what would you say to that piece as well too? I've seen sometimes in relationships. Well, I try to go to the person. I try to connect, but the person, so it's all blurry. So what would you say to that, my brother?
I would say, we're working with you.
Okay.
Are you working? Are you here for them? You can't change them. I would say only person I can help out in this room, or only person that you can work on, is truly yourself. And we have to learn how to set boundaries for that side. If that person is in the room saying that, or this is the type of meeting we have, or what have you, only person you can control is you. Now, okay, that might give more fear, but there's certain levels of fear that just that are out of proportion, or this is not really that like there's more fear. Like, we have to learn how to deal with those things you said, what's going on inside. You have to find out what's going on inside that's keeping you, that's stopping you from setting boundaries. Keeping also, that type of person is typically a people's pleaser, a pleaser, and so on and so forth. So we got to deal with that, But on the other side, that person is being dealt with too, because everybody knows that bully. Everybody knows that person who has I'm not even gonna call everybody bully, but some people are just a little bit more excited or exciting, or they just a little bit more aggressive. But they also have to learn boundaries too, because they will walk all over you and not even realize that they did it. So yes, I deal with both sides of this equation. In fact, that is what you see in most relationships. And I'm saying what you see in romantic relationships, but you also see it in familial relationships, but you also see it in careers and where people work at. You also see it wherever you go. The person that shows up, where you show up how you are everywhere you go. And we have to point that finger right on back at you. Not saying that there's no work to be done out there, but how can I set? And guess what I say too, Brother Sankofa? I say it's time for us to have places that aren't just safe either. I know we talk about this safe space stuff.
Okay.
But
now explain what you mean by that. Explain what you mean. So you're saying that the safe place could even be perhaps a crutch or go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Well, you're a very intuitive man. Yes, I didn't say that, but you're intuitive. Don't let anybody ever tell you that your intuition doesn't work. But what happens is, yes, I am saying it becomes, it's okay. I think we should start there.
Okay.
But if we stay there, we're doing nothing but really pacifying and enabling an issue that, if that's what you want to do again, that's what you do. But if you want some change inside of you and outside, then we have to go a step further, where people can begin to give you feedback. Because sometimes you say spaces, I just come and I talk and nobody say anything to me. But that's not how real relationships work.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you want,
Okay.
if you come into my group sessions that I do back there, then you're gonna have to learn to deal with people, and people do all types of stuff.
Yes. Absolutely. And I like that. Even safe spaces could even be perhaps, I guess, I'll say, stagnating for us. Um,
Uh-huh.
so tell me more, brother, about um, this event here, and perhaps what you might drop on the folks that night. African Black centered thought, a revolutionary framework for Black healers, healing, and liberation. I would assume that some of the jewels, some of the many jewels you've already dropped, might be intertwined in that. But is there anything else you want the people to know, or why should they come? Talk about that event and what you're going to share. A shout out to also Reverend Wiley Moo Kevin Patrick. Shout out to Brother Curtis Warren. Shout out to K Love, the poet, who also is going to be part of the crew too that day, and everybody that comes. But speak to us about that event and what you might share with the people on that day, brother.
All right, so I'm gonna make this a bit simple. What I hear as um a as a clinician and also as an academic is that Black people don't have theoretical approaches to counseling and psychology. And so my question has always been, so if we don't have theoretical approaches, counseling theory, psychological theory, then what are all these Black people doing with all these Black people in our community who are offering up therapy? I am going to challenge that notion. I am going to bunk that notion, and I'm going to share with you that we have everything that we need. We just have to realize we have it.
Mm, wow. Mic drop. Mic drop. And I like how you put that. Um, so one of the things about TNAT Holistic Wellness Center, when you come in there, it's going to really appeal to your five senses. You're gonna smell the food. Shout out to Diaspora and Soul, Mama Camille Winkler, and the team, Kepra, Dennis Ausar the third, and Mill and the whole crew. Baba downstairs doing the martial arts, Montu Chi Ru, a little bit of kickboxing in there. You'll see products that all lend to in some way wellness and healing, holistic cultivation. There's programs and different operations and functions in this TNAT Holistic Wellness Center. I'm proud to see what has materialized as being one that has been part of the process to get to that point. And this theme this year for Black History Month is African Americans in the arts. Now, when we talk about history is connected. It's an interdisciplinary field. So history brings in the psychology, sociology, economics, politics, but it also brings into it the arts. And so once again, just know we gonna have your back, brother Dennis, sometime soon. But how can we use the arts and tap into the arts to facilitate and foster a sense of optimum wellness for us? How can we do that? The arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think art is broad, right? I think it can be anything from anything writing in a journal, you know, writing in itself is an art. Is it actually becoming a lost art? Cursive is
Mhm.
no longer being taught. But if you just take out a pen, I'm just talking on a very basic fundamental level, and start writing again, you probably will realize how cathartic that is. And I'm not saying that's enough because you know one thing or two things one thing is not enough for everybody, and one thing is not enough for just for all of us. But just really dealing with that pen on the pad and it and having to utilize that does something for your brain. It does something for the creative aspects. And what happens if, and we're talking about trauma in a trauma informed approach, Brother Sankofa, that you say that history heals takes, um, is that we will understand that certain aspects of our brain actually they're not really connecting anymore,
Mhm.
right?
Okay. Okay.
And I think it just depends on how you've learned to adapt to trauma. We've maybe adapt to the trauma in a maladaptive sense, but some of us are very left brained, and some of us are very right brain or left hemisphere and right hemisphere, where some of us are very black and white people. And these are the people who typically have to protect themselves, and they like we're very regimented, we're very, everything has to be this or that or this, and this is what it is. You have those people who art will help. They might not even like it, but it's kind of like you might not like a lot of things. You might not like how the medicine tastes, but it can do something for you. It can open you up when you're so regimented, when you're so black and white on issues and all these type of things. You begin to close yourself down, and these also are typically the people who isolate themselves. But these type of things like art, I don't. Art, it can be singing, it could be dancing, it could be using a coloring book, it could be using a journal, it could be playing with some sand, it could be looking at nature. It could be, I mean, it's just vast, right? But what it can do is help you tap into that right hemisphere of your brain because you're so left brain. And then we have brothers and sisters who that their trauma got them dealing with, I don't want no rules, I don't want no boundaries, I just want to be a
Mm.
flower child, I just want to do
Mm.
me, I don't want none of that. And then sometimes the art with them, yeah, I don't know, they're already art. So, so, so you can use art to at least help them feel comfortable and allowing that to be a stress. I'm sorry, a strength of this. It's a strength that you can tap into to kind of help them tap into that other region.
So might you be talking about, brother Dennis, something perhaps called ma'at, or something like balance, or evening this thing out, perhaps? Is that connecting, and is that what you might be getting at, my brother?
Mayat, balance, homeostasis, yeah, all of those things.
Okay, okay, okay.
Equilibrium.
So just want to make sure before time runs out, Brother Dennis, give your contact information so people can connect with you directly. They can connect with this wonderful institution, TNAT Holistic Wellness Center. They could come through and get them some wonderful food. Give the people, those tuning in, your contact information before we wrap up for today.
Well, let me say this, dear brother Sankofa,
Sure.
my comrade, my
Yes, sir.
friend, my brother. Thank you for having me on, brother Sankofa. He's out there doing big things now, but he is a part of TNAT. He's out there doing his thing. And I appreciate you bringing me on and all that you're doing and taking the message forward in healing the community, and by extension, as Dr. Amos Wilson says, the world, right? But as far as TNAT, I would like to say, how was it? How can they get in contact? What was it?
Yeah, so how can they get in contact with you? Perhaps I know you're on
Mhm.
social media, but also TNAT. And I know there's other programs and other things. So TNAT
Mhm.
contact info and yours.
Mhm. So you can find T on IG. You can find TNAT at TNAT Holistic Wellness Center. That's the handle at TNAT Holistic Wellness Center. And TNAT, for you who don't know, is T, N is Nancy, A is Alpha, T again, and that's TNAT. And for me, at sign Dr. Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler. Um, and you can find Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler on YouTube. You can find him on TikTok, and you can just look me up, and you can find me on IG. You can also find me on Facebook. It's just Dennis Asar Winkler. Um, as far as you can also, we're brick and mortar. We follow Dr. Amos Wilson's dictum. He says that we have to have brick and mortars. So we have a brick and mortar at 5525 Harford Road. We're open on between Tuesday and Saturday for public events and food and coming to the shop and offering all types of services and healing circles and so on and so forth. But then you can also give us a call again at that's 410
I'm definitely glad to have you with us. You mean a lot to me, my brother. And you know, there at the center, there's been dance classes, there have been drumming circles, there have been a host of events, live music, celebrations, Kwanzaa, so much culture and arts and opportunities to heal. So definitely check it out for sure. There's a website you could go to as well too. Um, this is not by any means the end of the conversation. Know that. And so we're going to continue to have these conversations and these dialogues and discussions. So glad that you could be with us. And I'll give my contact information. History Heals is on IG and it's on Facebook. History Heals Consulting. And YouTube History Heals Consulting, and you can go to the website historyheals.com as well for those who want workshops, groups, lectures, and many other different things that are offered to support the healing and wellness of the community through a African-centered lens. And just hop on the website for more information and reach out to me. And you can go to info@historyhealsconsulting.com. And also, before we wrap up for today's episode, I want to also give a shout out to Brother John Logic, who's behind the scenes, who hooked up the platform today for us to have this very necessary and important conversation. So till then, till next time, thank you, Brother Dennis, Dr. Winkler. We signing off, y'all. Peace out till next time, y'all. Peace.